This is Kathleen Smith, Chief Outreach Officer for ClearedJobs.Net. As we work in the security cleared community, it is always important for us to provide up-to-date information about what is going on in the security cleared marketplace. Some of the questions that we frequently get are, what is happening with my security clearance? What are some of the things I can do to protect it? And what I should be aware of from day to day throughout my career development. We are so happy to have joining us today TC Mitchell, who has been known as a renowned expert on security clearances and is here to provide us some up-to-date information. So TC, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it, Kathleen. Nice to meet you officially.
Yes.
I am a security professional, and I've done both contracting work as well as federal government work. And I've recently created a course that helps military members transition into civilian contracting work. So a piece of that is my clearance program where I help people mitigate circumstances regarding getting a clearance. I help them understand the whole process of it, and I've done adjudication. I've done just processing all levels of a person's clearance. So that's pretty much where I come from.
Sounds great. Well, I know everyone is going to be looking forward to hearing some of the new updates that we need to be aware of. We're all in the midst of COVID-19, the pandemic, and it is impacting almost every single aspect of our lives. So in light of COVID, many families may be running into financial trouble. What are your recommendations for family members and those with security clearances during dealing with financial issues that may be impacted by COVID-19?
That's a great question. Because financial situations occur in everyone's life, and certainly with COVID-19, it's been something unexpected for all of us. We really were not prepared for this, and the financial burdens and considerations that have come with it related to our work, it's imperative that we still stay on top of our finances. So yeah, you give your calls to, you get a copy of all your credit reports for one. You could do that. That's through annualcreditreport.com. You get 3 free a year. And after that, you make a call to those creditors of anything that's behind. Normally, if it's a contractor, you should have it taken care of within 30 to 60 days. Often government civilians, which they have a different criteria, they can go past maybe 90 to 120 days and still be able to have everything mitigated. I'll say it that way. Nevertheless, call each and every one of them. You just call your creditors. It's that simple. I tell everyone, you can have $1 million in debt. It just can't be $1 million in delinquent debt. So how do you resolve delinquent debt is you pick up the phone, you make a call, and you set up some sort of arrangements. You create a conversation and you just explain, this is my situation. These are the things going on. I'm falling behind, or I have fallen behind. What can I do?
Wonderful. I know that a lot of people are very concerned about their finances, especially during this time. And it's nice to know that they do have something that they can do. They can call their creditors, they can get their credit reports, and they can start setting up, taking control over that situation rather than leaving it, out of their control.
Absolutely.
Another question that a lot of our community is very interested in is continuous monitoring being implemented at agencies. How would a security clearance holder know if they are being continuously monitored? And if they are being continuously monitored, do they have to still go through the reinvestigation? And how is it different from previous reinvestigations?
Sure. That's a really good question because this is the next step. We are moving into continuous vetting and continuous evaluation. And what that means is the 5-year and 10-year process of getting your clearance, that's not going to change. You will always, every 5 or 10 years, still have to submit your EQIP SF-86. However, continuous vetting is designed to help find the problems early. So rather than a problem that began at the beginning of a 5-year period, well, maybe the United States government doesn't find out until 5 years later because of this, our normal system. Continuous vetting will mitigate that by doing daily checks on certain databases, public records, court records, that sort of thing, or quarterly checks, which will be through national databases like law enforcement. So it's really designed to help uh, almost mitigate the insider threat piece. But more importantly, it could also help a person that is going through some troubles to get help to handle it earlier rather than later.
Now, is there anything that the security cleared worker how would they be notified that they are being continuously monitored, or is this being rolled out agency by agency?
Everyone should assume they are now in, if they hold a clearance, they should assume that they are in the continuous evaluation program. The Federal Investigative Standards, which decides everything regarding clearances, background checks, the policymakers, they have insisted it is going to be policy that all agencies participate in the CE program. So you should assume. However, there is a rollout. How that's going down the pike, I'm not exactly sure, but we can say there are many agencies already participating.
Great to know. So, what is the biggest issue that you hear about coming up in reinvestigations?
It's the same. It's the same to criminal conduct and financial concerns. So again, as I tell everyone with financial concerns, you can have $1 million, $2 million in debt, but it can't be delinquent debt. So you always call those creditors and set up some sort of payment plan for that. The other issue is criminal conduct, and that would include speeding tickets that are in excess of $300, which, if I'm not mistaken, it means you're at least over 20 miles an hour in the speed limit, that sort of speeding ticket. Um, and just general domestic violence issues, those sorts of situations. It's always good to self-report to your facility security officer, or to, if you're government, of course, to your own SSO, your special security officer. So, but those are the two main ones.
Great. Based on the issues you've seen regarding foreign national contact, what recommendations do you have for avoiding potential pitfalls?
The same problem has happened in the intel world that it's happened in DoD, and that is reporting every single foreign contact. It is an obligation. It is something that you sign on for when you are given your clearance. That's one of your obligations. So you do keep a good track record. I've had experiences where people have had so many foreign contacts, they give me full spreadsheets. And often they are doing it on behalf of the government, but even government work requires you to report those people.
Now, let's dig a little bit deeper and say, what contact are we talking? Someone who calls me on the phone, is this social media? What is contact?
Sure. It varies from the IC. It is usually even social media contacts, yes. DoD side may be a little more flexible. Of course, someone in passing that may bag your groceries or may, I don't know, be your physician. It depends on the extent of that relationship. If it's just a passing relationship and they don't really know much about you, no. But if you have endearing ties to them, you should expect that you should report them.
Great. How should someone address past drug or marijuana usage, and how far in the past does the usage need to be to mitigate the issue?
For drug usage, it's a little touchy. It depends. So, of course, mitigating issues would be attending a rehab facility. In general, the rule is between 1 and 5 years, you should have ceased that use. Uh, Without going into much detail, I will say with marijuana and Washington and District of Columbia, of course, allows marijuana use. The federal government does not recognize it as being legal, not even for medical purposes. So you would at least need to have stopped for a year. If you're a District of Columbia user and resident, you at least need to have stopped for a year before you could apply for your clearance.
So that's true for all the other states where cleared work is going on that also has legalized marijuana. So we're talking Colorado, California, Utah, Arizona, Nevada.
Wow, yes. Absolutely.
A lot of different states. So
Absolutely.
and I think that it might be helpful for people to understand why that is the case, because we get a lot of questions that say, but it's legal in the state. Why can't it be accepted for my security clearance? So can you sort of explain to people what that differentiator is between state and federal?
Absolutely. So basically, our clearance falls under a federal policy. It falls under federal code of law. And each state is allowed to do what they want to do within their own jurisdiction. But the federal government is who we actually answer to. So that's the only policy that we can really enforce.
Thank you for explaining that, because we have a lot of people who get quite upset, like, but it's legal in my state. And I said, yes, I'm sorry.
I know, I know.
It's a federal law.
Yes, but the National Security Clearance Program falls under the federal government.
That's a really great differentiator. So, in your opinion, has any progress been made towards security clearance reciprocity between agencies? This is a big question we run into a lot in the IC, especially.
I would say it depends on who you speak with. My personal opinion, I think reciprocity works just fine. I think it's maybe not handled as expeditiously as it could be, as it should be. But with each agency, they have a set of rules and a culture in which they operate. And so they will accept the clearance, they will, but that doesn't mean that they will not still go through their own adjudicative process.
Hmm.
So they may say, yes, I acknowledge the FBI's background check, background clearance, but we are another agency. And so we will still do certain thorough checks on other issues that may be important to that particular agency. But yeah, it is a concern about reciprocity, but from where I stand, it is accepted. They just have extra nuances with each agency that I personally don't believe is going to ever change because every agency has their own uh, type of culture, their own personality, so to speak, and they care about certain things more than another agency may.
I remember trying to explain this to someone, when they were trying to say, why couldn't one clearance be accepted to something else? And there's a specific term that is escaping my mind right now. But as far as the mission of the organization, since we have so many different agencies that require security clearance, but some of them have different missions, some of them have different ways they work. For example, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms has a specific, mission in the way they do business. Other agencies may, be fine with a criminal record that may have had in some time in the past a firearm, you know, uh, misdemeanor or something. But since you will be working for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, that is not something that they would accept as far as their mission, because that is the
Absolutely.
kind of work they would do. Who would be the best sort of contact within an agency to say, you know, is this going to be a specific mitigating issue? I mean, you're not going to talk to your investigator. Who else would you talk to in the agency to say, I'm trying to do reciprocity or I have particular issues? Who would be the best person to get the straight answer from?
Normally, it's their security officer. Um, on occasion, you can probably go to the government security officer if you already have it. But as a contractor, your first line is usually your facility security officer. I would probably reach out to them. In addition, they have other resources from which they can pull and try to help you with that. I have found that the government wants to help you mitigate your problems. They're not trying to pull your clearance. You're valuable to the community. You're valuable to the government work. So I have found for the most part that if you express it, they're going to help you.
Should someone, check in with their FSO on an annual basis? Should they, because we always tell people you should keep recruiters part of your network. I would assume someone that is a holder of your security clearance is someone you might want to get to know, just at least know who they are and sort of what you need to do on an annual basis to make sure everything is free and clear.
Absolutely. It should be an open door policy with your facility security officer. I have heard at times that it seems like they're way far away and they're unreachable and, we don't like to bother them. But truly they are a resource for you regarding your clearance. There's also 800 numbers you could call with the owner of your clearance, usually in the DoD realm, I should say, and they have answers for you also. But yes, absolutely, your first resource is your security officer. And if nothing else, they do a quarterly or annual briefing refresher for you. And that is a good time to even bring up questions if you're just a little hesitant about approaching them, any other time.
We've surveyed employers and found that 1 in 5 would not consider hiring someone who has mentioned their clearance in any way on social media. What recommendations do you have for security clearance holders and social media?
I would recommend that security clearance holders do not list their clearance on their social media. I think it's not good operational security. And if you have a really good environment that you trust online, it may be okay in that sense, because I understand professional networking is important, but you also have to be very careful who your friends are. Uh, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, although maybe not so much. You just have to really be careful. And those are the three that I would just completely shy away from listing what your clearance is.
And as you and I were chatting, we also talk about not listing your security clearance on social media, even including LinkedIn, even though many recruiters will push you to do so, correct?
That is very true. That is very true. Now you can inbox them and have that conversation. I think one of the challenges is when you put it out there, somebody could potentially put all the pieces together of who is in your network. And does that make you vulnerable? Does that make your team vulnerable? That sort of thing.
That's great. Well, TC, it's been wonderful chatting with you. Do you have any final words for our audience about their security clearances?
If you have any questions, I'm here to help. You can reach me at info@secured-solutions.com. I'm really excited about this.
Well, great. Thank you so much, TC. Have a great day.